Welcome to the Retail Unleashed podcast with your host, the Associate Vice President of North Florida Retail, Jason Hurst. And I have an oldie but a goodie. She's not oldie, but a guest from last season. It was so good, I had to bring her back. So I've got Terri Sherman here from Florida Business Exchange, and she is a business intermediary, or what we would commonly call a business broker, and she's one of the best in the business. So welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me. And as always, I just appreciate the kind words. And I'm like, if every day could start like this, you know?
Well, no, we're happy to have you back. So, since the last time we talked, which was about a year ago, the world has changed. The markets have changed. We're dealing with inflation. We're dealing with high cost of construction, all these different market factors. How has valuing businesses changed over the last year, given all of these market factors?
You raise great points, and I think we're just going to continue to see the change and try to adapt in it. Certainly, I would say, buyers who are looking now are really leaning in on lease terms and how long is left on the current lease, where that's always been a factor, but I feel like it's different now because landlords are operating a little bit differently. I'm not sure if you're seeing that on your end too, but
big time.
It's changing our landscape rapidly. So I would definitely say that. So the more time a seller has on his or her lease before the current term ends, the better. So that old game of kind of running, we've got 6 months left or 3 months left, it's just not working out well these days. Definitely the growth opportunity. So businesses that I guess would say have maxed out, those definitely, they've again never been ideal, but especially now. So definitely thinking about that typical bell curve sales cycle, right? Where you want to sell just before you've maxed out, and the decline that's naturally going to happen at some point is happening. Thinking about that. And then of course I had a deal with this came up earlier this year, customer concentration. So really understanding what that customer concentration is from a seller first, to know what you're positioning on the market as, but buyers are really, really paying attention to that too.
Okay. No, that's good to know. So how are you going about valuing certain businesses? I know it's different for different industries, but maybe you can give us some of the more prominent industries. How are you going about valuing businesses these days?
That's one thing that really doesn't change. Kind of the approach and valuation, that's always going to be a constant. So again, just kind of looking at a percentage of revenue or perhaps a multiple of the net profit, those are always going to be sort of the two positions, but also accounting for included assets. So the tangible furniture, fixtures, and equipment, the inventory. And again, inventory is always going to be assumed to be at cost, not at retail. So understanding what that number is. And I think I referenced this the last time I was on, but the intellectual property, because that's still, I think, emerging for small business owners, really. And when I say small, I mean true Main Street business owners. For years, I maybe encountered one or two, every couple of years, who had just a trademark on their name or logo. And now I think that's becoming more frequent, which I think is a great thing, because there's value there. It's subjective, but there's value there. So giving a value to that in addition to the other assets. And then also thinking about, just since I'm thinking about it, what's owned versus what's leased. We can never account for leased items in that figure because you don't own them outright unless they're leased and a seller is going to pay them off at closing, which they should be doing anyway if they're going to account for them. So those things really don't change.
Okay. I'm going to throw you a curveball. I didn't send you this question beforehand, but which markets or which business industries are trading the most right now? What are the most popular opportunities that buyers are looking for?
That hasn't changed a lot either. I think the max on multiples, if you will, internet space still. So internet, fintech related stuff. I mean, some of them are getting 5-6x depending on, the business structure. It's crazy. Yeah.
That's good.
We don't see a whole lot of those on our end, few and far between, but they're there. The pet business, I think I referenced still.
Wow.
People still want to be in that business. dogs are going to keep barking apparently. And I'm like, they're getting treated better than we are in some cases, living the life.
That's true.
So that's still very popular. But what's nice to see now is a lot more interest I'm seeing in the last maybe 6 months on service businesses. Mm-hmm. So that's it. Again, it's always been kind of a constant, but I'm definitely seeing an uptick there. So remediation companies, plumbers, anything in that space, flooring, you know, and I guess that kind of runs parallel to what's happening on your side of the market too, yes, in terms of real estate. But those two, automotive, there's a kind of a renewed interest there. So just those service businesses that I think people feel like aren't going to be as impacted if the economy shifts more dramatically.
Yeah. So you brought up the point about real estate a couple of times now. So I have to ask, how is real estate affecting your business? Are people typically, selling off the real estate with it? Are they trading the leases with it? How is that affecting your business too, from a real estate standpoint?
So the owners that own their real estate are definitely repackaging it up. And my opinion on that is definitely from the SBA standpoint, if it's a situation that will cash flow and work well for an SBA loan for a buyer to leverage 15, 20% down on a total package, meaning business and real estate, you can't beat that. I mean, in terms of return on investment. So those that have it, they've been very open to it. And I think for those that are retiring, they understand that's going to be the most that we're going to get if we include the real estate with it.
Okay.
I think in cases where they're hanging on to it beyond just, merely holding on to it because they're open to being a landlord, the businesses may not cash flow enough to support a buyer paying rent coming in. Yeah. So it's kind of a need to sell both of them. On the other hand, yes, the bulk of what we're doing is lease assignments, and again, we'll talk about that, but that's changing.
Okay, fair enough. In this changing environment, I know that there's been a lot of challenges that you probably faced. Give me one success story that you experienced recently, where you provided value where there may have not been value, and you exceeded the expectations of your customer.
Sure. So we had a scenario, SBA deal, and it was the business and the real estate. So we get through due diligence successfully. The buyer is excited, seller is excited. We, I think, had gone in for the business appraisal and the real estate appraisal. Everything comes back fine. Then we find out in the 11th hour that it was kind of a rural area, and there were 2 parcels of real estate that the seller owned, but only one parcel, I guess, was considered commercial, and it was commercial frontage on the main highway because that's where the building sat. It was, I think, like 4 or 5 acres in total between the 2. Well, we find out the parcel that was just trees, basically, was never zoned commercial. It was a PUD, and SBA, if you're not zoned commercial, they cannot, lend on that.
Yep.
So here's everybody in a tizzy. It was a smaller county, and they weren't necessarily the most amenable to quick response. So we could forget trying to get it rezoned. I was trying to be tactful. You saw that? So zoning would have taken forever, and that just was not an option. So thankfully, we came up with an idea to structure it differently, where the one parcel of real estate would be seller financed, and then the rest of the deal would be done through the SBA. So it worked out well. I think everybody was happy at the end of it. In fact, the seller touches base with me every few months just to say hi. So that's always a good sign. But it was definitely a little bit of panic in the 11th hour, but we were able to get it done. So
that was doggone. That's creative, but I'm not surprised. Not surprised.
Well, thank you.
So I'm gonna give you my last question. I didn't get to ask this last time. This is for me because I went through the process of selling a business, as you know, and was really wrestling with when was it time to sell? Was the time then? In hindsight, it was the perfect time to sell because all the costs of the business just went out of whack. What do you advise when people ask, is it time to sell my business? Am I in the market to sell my business? Or so this is going to be, I'm sure this is going to be a good answer, but when is it time to sell? What do you advise people?
So I chuckle because my response, people kind of look at me. I'm like, the day you wake up and you're making the most money you've ever made, sell. Like, it's time to go.
Okay.
Because as we know, you just said it, what goes up is going to come down. So don't wait until sales start to decline. We do everything in threes, right? Kind of parallel to the bank. Okay. So when you take a look at, previous year and the 2 years prior, you want that trend to be going up, not down year over year. And so time it properly, because again, for someone buying, the whole purpose is to build on what someone's already put in place. And if there's no ceiling left, so to speak, for someone to come in and grow it further, why are they really going to buy it unless it's solely a strategic buy, which we still see some of that. But again, as you alluded to, it's a very different landscape now. So people are really looking at profitability and their return on investment where the price is concerned, where again, they've always weighed that, but that's the thing now, not as much strategic buys happening, in my opinion. So really looking at, am I making good money? Has my year over year history been increasing or at least being steady? Like, that's the time.
Okay. No, that's good. That's really good to know. And you helped me with that process too. So big ups to you. And I will personally refer you to as many people as I can. And I do.
You do. And I appreciate you for it. And likewise, though, and I don't want to go off script here, but I have to say to anyone listening, I just want to emphasize the need to not discount like professionals, right? And especially those in the commercial space and the commercial leasing space, which is, you come into both of those, because as you've heard me say several times this morning about the leases, I've seen so many scenarios just this year alone where the lease looks great to someone signing. They had no really advisement going in. They're ready to sell, and now the language is biting them. So whether they're having to stay on personal guarantees for the next 3 to 5 years, even after a buyer bought it, like no one wants to really do that, seeing more of that. Or landlords asking for increased security deposits, and I mean like tens of thousands of dollars. It's unexpected. A scenario just happened last week. I had a couple who was ready to make a full price offer on a franchise salon, didn't want the franchise. The landlord goes, nope, we don't lease to anyone who's independent. So all of these things that, if people don't have the right professionals or aren't seeking the right information, it'll catch you in the end. So big ups to you too.
And I'll send you the check for that after the show.
I appreciate it. Perfect, no, I'm just kidding.
Well, how can we get in touch with you? I don't want to assume that people saw the last episode, so I want to make sure we maximize this moment. How can people get in touch with you to refer you business?
Absolutely. So my website is Mind Your Business Today, exactly as it sounds and is spelled. mindyourbusinesstoday.com, and I'm very active on Instagram, probably the most active there. And that is the handle is Mind Your Business FL for Florida.
Mm-hmm. And Terri will help you mind your business. That's why she's here.
I will help you mind your business. Yes.
Mind your business. That's all. Just mind your business.
That's it.
Well, Terri, thank you so much for being on the show again. We're going to have you back eventually. Probably on.
I look forward
just
to
plan
it.
to come back every season.
Okay.
Just get an update on the market every season.
Well, I'm honored. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.